Hello, all, and welcome to another episode of the Brothers Creed podcast, where we talk about motivation, ours and others' experiences, and exploring the world around us. We're the Thomas Brothers. I'm Jared.
I'm Ethan.
And today we have an interesting episode for you. As we're coming up on the holidays here, many folks are looking for gifts to give or things they want to buy themselves. And we're going to talk about 5 guns that every man should own, or at least consider owning.
All right, let's do it.
Let's do it.
You can't climb the ladder of success with your hands in the pocket.
We will not go quietly into the night.
They tell me you're a man with true grit.
I am the one who knocks.
Don't ever tell me what I can't do, ever!
That's how winning is done.
Okay, so in today's episode, let's dive into the top 5 guns every guy should own. So I put together kind of a list of the top 5 guns I think a guy should have. And then Ethan, you've put together your top 5, right?
Yeah. So before we get started with that, I just want to kind of preface as well is that obviously we're going to talk about guns today. Always practice safety when it comes to guns.
Yeah.
Typically the top rules of gun safety that we always talk about, just wanted to reiterate, always treat a gun as if it's loaded. Always keep it pointed in a safe location. Always keep your finger off the trigger
until you're ready to fire.
And never point it at anything you are not willing to destroy.
Yeah.
And I added one on there too. Make sure to keep them protected and safe and out of the reach of children.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I had a friend recently tell me, with all that's going on, he's like, I think I want to get a gun, but I just am not familiar with what I should get or what I should consider getting. He doesn't know much about guns, but you know, we've got guns, and so I said maybe it would be good to just do an episode about how someone might get into it. So what do you say we start with our first gun, maybe the first gun someone should get if they're going to get into guns?
Okay.
We start with that?
Yeah, I think what you said, I really liked what you said. There, you know, many of our listeners, maybe you are into guns, or maybe you have some familiarity, but if you don't, then that's fine. If you're curious or if you have questions, ask. Any person that's a gun guy, if you ask them about it, they're not going to shame you or make you look dumb. They're going to say, oh, okay, you know, I always have a question. Or, you know, questions are completely fine.
Yeah.
So actually I have a story to go along with that one.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we grew up with guns and mostly shooting, you know, all different types of guns. But whenever I was about to get married, you know, I was 21-ish, and there was somebody that we were talking about guns, and they were showing me his collection, and obviously I had grown up with guns, but I had never become familiar with the AR platform before. So an AR-15, I'd never become familiar with the platform.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, different guns have different ways of loading and unloading and different things like that. And so he had an AR-15 and he was showing it to me. And so he handed it to me. And the first thing you do whenever someone hands you a gun is you always check to see if it's loaded.
Yep.
And like I said, I had, you know, 20 something years of experience and I felt like I knew what I was doing, but he handed it to me and I didn't know how to check to see if it was unloaded. And so I remember in that moment, I didn't want to look like I was dumb or whatever else. And so, but at the same point, I didn't want to not verify that it was unloaded. And so I actually handed it back to him and I said, I'm not exactly sure how to check to see if this is unloaded. Can you show me? Yeah. And there was a little bit of, you know, take a little bit of a slice of humble pie. But at the same point, it was almost, there was more respect there because it was like, oh, okay, all right, you're respecting the firearm and everything else. And so he showed me, and then from there on, you know, obviously that was, you know, 10 years ago, so I was able to
but like
have more experience now. But
yeah. I think a lot of people who don't know about guns, maybe they're like, oh, well, I don't want to be the dumb guy in the room, and like I don't know how to handle this. And that's okay. Like you can do that. You can ask those questions, and people will be generally willing to help you or explain what those are. I think that sometimes I assume more people know about guns than actually do, because I grew up with them, and then and a lot of people around here, especially in the South, have grown up with or have been around guns and know what guns are. I mean, even if you see movies nowadays, you kind of know what some guns are,
or video games.
Yeah, especially video games, but yeah, totally. I agree. It's always better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah. So you were talking about, we can kind of start off with what we think maybe the most important is. I put my list of 5.
Not important. I would say introductory and to.
I guess that's true. Yeah. I put my list together of 5. I didn't really put them in any particular order, but I think it's good to think of it that way. So,
like, if you were to buy your first gun, what would your first gun be?
Yeah. So, obviously, guns can be used for lots of different reasons, right? Some of the reasons, hunting, survival, sporting, maybe protection. There's an investment.
Definitely protection.
Yeah, protection, and I think as well as an investment, especially in today's day and age with kind of the uncertainty around firearms. They're only going up in value.
Yeah.
So that's a whole different topic, but. I guess we'll just talk about.
So I think along those lines, the most important, I think, where a lot of people say like, "Well, I don't know guns," but I mean, if someone says, "I want to get a gun," usually it's out of I want to protect my family. Especially right now, there's a lot of civil unrest. There's a lot of questions. Heck, I was talking with a buddy the other day, and he was saying that the police department in the city that he's in is absolutely stretched as thin as it could possibly be. And it's just like, well, if you call the police, they're going to be there in a little while.
As soon as they can be. It could be 2 minutes. It could be 20 minutes.
Or an hour. Or you'll be longer. On hold on 911. So in some big cities, you'll get that. And so it's just like people say, well, I need to be able to protect myself. That is a right that I've been given in the Bill of Rights, in the Constitution, the right to bear arms. And so people were like, I have that right, and I want to exercise that to protect my family. So I think when starting with that, when you're starting out with a pistol, you need something when you're starting out with a gun, you need something for home defense. And there's a couple different things that you could do. I think probably, and I get 2 of these could cover that. In fact, all of these could cover home defense. But one of the things I think is probably good is a pistol. Having a pistol. Now, there's a whole variety of different pistols. You can get a semi-auto pistol, which it has a magazine that loads into the grip of the gun, and then it feeds in the bullets. Or you can get a revolver, where it's kind of like the old Western style, where you can put the bullets into the chamber cylinder, and then put it in. There's all kinds of those are 2 styles that you'll find out there, and probably the most common pistol out there for defense or concealed carry is probably the Glock. Glocks are very common, and there are just so many of them, and there's so many different types of Glock as a company, and they make different types of pistols. So you can get a small, like a subcompact or a full size or just a compact. I was looking at it last night, and they have they just have so many different kinds, and then they iterate and they create them and they make them better. So this is like version 2 of the subcompact 9mm. And so you can get them with different rounds. So usually the 9mm or 45 ACP typically is what I would suggest to go with, just because they're cheaper rounds, and you can be able to practice with those, and those are good at close range.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think, like you were saying before, is that, well, all of this, number one, is our opinion to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Whether a pistol is your first gun that you are interested in for protection, or maybe one of the first ones you want to get is maybe more of a shotgun for protection. But from the pistol side of things, I think it's definitely important. And like you said, you can really choose. There's so many different options. There's so many different companies. There's so many different brands and even calibers that you can look through. I personally, I've kind of gone through the 45s and 9mm, and 9mm to me was something that I liked better. I liked the increased capacity, as well as it was a little bit cheaper to shoot. So that was kind of nice too. So yeah, if it's something you plan on carrying with you all the time, then
the one reason why, the carrying with you, obviously that's part of it. If you want to conceal carry, you have to take a course. You have to learn how to do that. You have to get a license, approval from the sheriff, and a lot of cities. And every city is different, really. It's actually states.
You want to make sure you want to make sure you know what you're doing.
Yeah, but I don't have my concealed carry, but a lot of times you can easily put a pistol in a safe, or like a book safe near your bed, or near in your closet or something like that, easily accessible. There's one, in fact, there's several out there where you just like put your finger on it and it reads your fingerprint, and then it easily opens up, and it's just it looks like a book almost because it's really flat. So that's a way
it's something that's close by. And another thing too to talk about is potentially capacity. Typically with the full frame pistol, you'll get, it really varies anywhere from maybe 15 to 18 rounds in the magazine. Which is a pretty good amount. In more, some subcompacts or concealed carry, maybe it's more like 6 to 8. But if it's something
or
that you
less,
have,
some of them it's like 5 and 1 in the chamber.
Yeah, and so but if it's something that you have in your house that you don't intend to particularly carry around, you have in a safe, maybe next to the bed, like you said, I think that's a good option.
Yeah, so I know that the Glock is popular. Actually, that's not the one I have, though, because I don't necessarily like the Glocks, because I feel like the safety on a Glock is a trigger safety. So it's like a little safety that you push in the trigger. I don't even know what it does, because if anybody who grabs the gun and they're going to put their finger on the trigger and pull it, I guess it helps prevent against like bump fires and stuff. Like if you bump it really hard, it would fire, but I don't feel like a trigger safety is very safe.
I don't know the statistics or the science around it. I've had a couple Glocks and I've liked them. They're very sturdy. They'll basically feed any type of ammunition that you put into them. I know that a lot of police officers use Glocks. But I think it's just personal preference.
Yeah.
Some people like maybe more of a manual click safety.
That's what I like.
And sometimes it's just personal preference.
Yeah, that's why I've kind of gravitated towards the 1911s. So it's like it's a style of a pistol. It's a little bit different, has more of a click safety. And the Beretta 92 pistol, which was the M9, used by the military. In fact, it was adopted by the military in 1985, and it replaced the 1911 style pistol that was used in World War II. And so that Beretta, that black, usually black, it's used by the armies to this day. And I think it's a slick gun. Not something you will conceal carry, but it's a slick gun that's going to run you about $600.
Yeah, probably $500-600. And that's kind of interesting. We'll talk a little bit about some average prices today, but when you think about it, I mean, just in today's environment, gun prices have increased significantly.
Yeah.
You don't know, they kind of ebb and flow depending on the political environment. So these are some general averages. But.
Yeah. So the next one I had on my list, the next tier up was shotguns. Tell me what kind of shotgun you think.
Yeah. So actually,
or what kind of pistol would you get? What kind of pistol would you suggest?
Well, I think it really depends. I mean, I don't really think the brand so much matters as much as your familiarity with the pistol that you have and range time. I prefer something with a larger capacity. And like I said, I prefer 9mm. Mm-hmm. That for me is kind of the best, whether it's a Glock 19 or, a SIG or a Canic. I typically like something that's a little more full frame, unless I'm going to conceal carry something, and then obviously, there's lots of different options for that. But
yeah,
I do like the 1911. The 1911s are fun to shoot. They're a little bit heavier.
They look better too.
Yeah, they just look cool. But that's what I would choose, something more full frame and
You're saying full frame as opposed to like a subcompact.
Yeah. Full frame is something that's full size.
Full size.
Yeah. So, secondly, is I think is just as important is a shotgun. Shotguns are probably, depending on what kind of shotgun you get, maybe let's just say your standard Remington 870 pump action shotgun. It's probably one of the easiest actions to understand and to make function. Mm-hmm. And it's just it's a very I guess fluid process. So I would say, typically you have either 12 gauge or 20 gauge. 12 gauge is more powerful. It's bigger. And with that, you can use shotguns for all different types of things. So you have shotguns that are maybe have a little bit of a shorter barrel. Maybe they'll have a pistol grip on them. They'll have a tactical flashlight on them. Something that is more maybe for a self-defense or a close quarters type situation, maybe in a house or something like that, not for very long range. And then you have shotguns that are more meant for hunting, whether it be waterfowl, ducks, geese, or whatever it may be, or deer as well. Typically they have longer barrels, larger stocks, and they're just not as I guess short and compact as
Yeah, in fact, I have a 870 Express. I like it, but then I also have another Mossberg. But I was looking online, and there's actually one Mossberg 500 12 gauge, which is actually like really cool. It comes with a kit from Mossberg. It comes with as a 12 gauge. It comes with a pistol grip stock, so the stock is kind of where the butt that goes into your shoulder. You can actually change that out to be a pistol grip. They'll give you a pistol grip as well. It also comes with 2 different size barrels. So you have a 28-inch barrel, which is more for like your hunting your skeet shooting, your sporting, that kind of a thing. And then also 18.5-inch barrel, which would be more for like a home defense. So you can take it to the go skeet shooting or dove hunting or whatever you want, and then you get home, you can put that pistol grip on, put that short barrel on, and you can use it for home defense. That kit is $400, so not too bad.
Yeah, my first gun, the first gun I ever bought was a 12 gauge shotgun Remington 870.
Yeah.
I bought it. I can't remember how many. It was $250, I think, is when I bought it.
Yeah, I bought my Mossberg for $200.
Yeah, and it's really nice. I mean, I have shot a lot of skeet or clay pigeons or whatever you want to call them, and also gone hunting with it as well. And I mean, it's just reliable. So
yeah,
that or the Mossberg as well.
I use my shotgun as a home defense, and you can buy home defense rounds, so shotgun shells. So your shotgun rounds, they can pack them with anything. They can put balls in them, they can put BBs in them, they can put different amounts of BBs in them, they can put slugs in them if you're going like deer hunting or something. So there's some home defense rounds that have like 3 rubber balls in them, and so basically, if someone comes to my house, I'm supposed to be in my house, and I shoot them, it's not going to like go through the walls. I'm sure they would probably go through the person, but the thing is, you have to be careful of with home defense weapons is you don't want to be shooting into the next room or shooting, into the neighbor's house. So having something that's I think like a shotgun. If you shot a shotgun at the wall in your house, it probably would not go through. It would. And you shot it right at the wall, it probably would not go through the outside wall and then through the neighbor's house and then inside there. I mean, it depends on how close the houses are, but a shotgun with BBs is not going to go that far.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just situational awareness, and know what you're doing. Obviously, if you're ever in the situation where you have to protect yourself, it's probably a hectic situation. I've never been there, luckily, and hopefully I never have to be. But yeah, it's definitely, you have to kind of think of what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So that's shotgun. So that's 2. So we had pistol, shotgun, and we'll let you guys kind of think through all these and then decide which one you think is probably the first one that you want to get, or maybe the second one if you already have one of the ones that we're talking about. So after pistol and shotgun, what's the next one that you say you would get?
So the next one, really, I think that is also important is just that I think every person should have, and this might also be almost an introductory rifle, is a 22 rifle. I'm thinking a 10-22. I have a 10-22, a Ruger 10-22 that is, also a Marlin. Great, so it's a semi-auto rifle. Which means you can use a magazine. Some of the Marlins are tube load, so it's actually a tube right under the barrel that you load the 22s. Now, 22 is a very low caliber.
Yeah, and by semi-automatic we mean basically it's one trigger pull equals one bullet.
Yes. Fully automatic would be you pull the trigger and it just keeps firing.
Yeah.
Which is illegal in some states, and in some states where it is legal, you have to go through a ginormous process. It's like 9 months of like background checks.
There's permits and different things you have to get, I think, depending on what state you're in.
And it costs a fortune. But yeah, so I would say a 10-22. One of the ones I really like is a 10-22 takedown, which is where you can take off the barrel and it kind of folds in half. You can put it in a backpack so that no one really knows. If you were to have to. Not that you're going to be sneaking around a rifle, but if you're walking in the woods or something like that, and you don't want anybody to know that you're carrying a rifle, just because some people can be skittish about that, you can keep it in your backpack.
Yeah. I mean, it's potentially great for hiking or whatever else as well.
Yeah.
So, I completely agree. That was actually on my list too. Was a 10-22 or a Marlin Model 60. The 10-22 is a magazine fed. Semi-automatic or versus, there's bolt action 22s. There's lots of different options you can get, but one of the reasons that I think 22 is important is, like you said, the ammunition. It's
super cheap.
It can be super cheap, depending. It's probably significantly cheaper than any other ammunition, and as well in certain situations, you can carry a lot of it at a time. I mean, if you could carry 500 rounds of 22, which is usually you get a box from Walmart, or used to be able to, of 500 rounds of 22 ammunition, and you could put that in a backpack. You could put 2-3 of them in a backpack and you probably wouldn't notice it. But if you put 500 rounds or 1,000 rounds of 45 auto pistol ammunition in your backpack, that would be 60 pounds. Heavy. Yeah. And so it just kind of gives you that capability. And in a hunting situation, you can hunt a lot of stuff with the 22.
Small game. And to a certain extent as well, 22s are fun to shoot because they're cheap and they're low recoil. So
yeah,
my wife loves shooting the 22. We also have a 22 pistol, and it is no recoil. It's not very loud. I mean, obviously, you wear ear protection when you're shooting guns and eye protection, but it's just low recoil, not very loud. It's not scary to someone who's new to guns, and it's a great introductory pistol. It's a great way to get kids train your kids on how to use guns and how to be comfortable. Maybe a bolt action 22 would be good, just because shoot it one at a time. But for kids to kind of train them, but a great gun.
Yeah, to gain experience and confidence with firearms. I think that's important. So yeah, I had the same thing on my list. I think that's important, and actually the 22 caliber rifle or pistol or whatever it is actually the most popular caliber in the entire United States. There's more guns that are 22s than any other gun. I was reading that statistic. It's kind of interesting. Yeah.
I wonder how many crimes are committed with 22s. Probably.
I don't know.
I know that most crimes are committed with handguns. Most deaths are caused by handgun crimes. Most firearm deaths are as a result of a handgun.
Yeah.
Also, handguns are hard with kids, and if you're new to guns, that muzzle, the end of the barrel, can move quickly. So if you have to be real careful with who's handling it, because if you can easily point that in the wrong direction. And like we said at the beginning of the thing, you don't want to point it in the direction of anything you don't want to obliterate.
Yeah, for sure. So after the shotgun, the pistol, the 22 caliber rifle, whatever it may be, I think an important thing to have is a hunting rifle, a large caliber hunting rifle. Now, there's lots of calibers out there that are large calibers. Just to name a few, 308, 270, 30-06. You know, there's lots of different calibers that are large enough to take down a large animal, whether it be a big game animal, a deer or an elk or a moose, whatever it may be. It'd be a lot harder to take down something like that with a 22. Unless you're a crack shot. I don't know.
You'd have to be a great shot. It all comes down to precision. Well, I know it was someone who's killed a deer with a BB gun.
I guess it's
a BB gun.
I think it's all about where you hit them, I guess.
It's all about precision. Really, that's what it is. I mean, if you have a gun that can just pack a huge punch, really, I mean, you talk about some of these giant elk and moose. I mean, unless you're shooting like a 50 caliber, like Beretta or something like that, it's going to absolutely rip the thing in half. You wouldn't do that anyway because it would kill the meat. But really, it's all about precision and being comfortable with your rifle. I went to elk hunting a couple times in Utah when I lived in Utah, and I was hunting with a 270. It's a heavy gun to carry around for miles and miles and miles in the woods. But I think maybe that was because I don't know, maybe I only spent about $400 on it. I got a Remington 270, about $400, and I got a huge scope on it because you're out there you're hunting long distances, maybe up to 300 yards. So it can be, you need a good scope.
Yeah, for sure. I kind of consolidated calibers into the 30-06, which is similar, and with a Ruger American 30-06 is basically, I've shot it lots of times, but I don't really hunt as much, right? I mean, I have it for in case, and it's fun to shoot, especially when you reach out, a couple hundred yards and you're shooting out there a little ways. It's fun to practice and to shoot like that. But
it's also, you can really get into it and really just long range target shooting. That's a hobby that a lot of people have, and they just go to the range and they can drive tacks at 300 yards.
yeah, for cool. Sure. And I think it really kind of depends. I mean, in any of these categories, you can spend $200 to $20,000. I mean, depending on where you want to go with it. I mean, it really probably a typical Ruger American, or like Jared said, what brand?
A Remington 270.
Yeah, Remington 270. I think that any of those probably would run you, I don't know, between $300 and $500.
Yeah, definitely. The Remington 270's been good to me. I like it. I think that it's always good to have, and it's kind of fun to shoot long range as opposed to close range. Most of those will be bolt action. I don't know that most hunting rifles are bolt action.
Yeah, I know that there are some that are semi-auto, but
you can hunt with almost any gun. I mean, you can hunt with a pistol. You can hunt with. It just has to have a certain muzzle velocity. And I know the laws are different per state, but I know that in Utah, for example, when I was really into it, you can hunt with certain pistols. It just has to have a certain amount of power when it comes out of the gun, and the velocity when it. At certain ranges, you don't want to be like.
And there's seasons for stuff. There's if you're hunting with, so let's say a muzzleloader, black powder. There's certain seasons, or even if you're hunting with archery or crossbow or whatever it may be. There's certain stipulations, but like you said, it just kind of depends on the state. So
yeah, that's another thing. Muzzle, black powder rifles are kind of the old school way to shoot guns, in that you pour the powder down the barrel and you shove the bullet down there like a circular bullet. Or nowadays they actually have more advanced black powder, because there's a special, before they go into the regular rifle season, they have a black powder because it's a little bit more difficult to shoot black powder, much more difficult to reload, obviously, and so that can be fun. I have one black powder pistol it's a replica from, I think it's a 1859 Confederate Navy replica pistol or something like that.
Interesting.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, obviously, all these things that we're talking about, they're on the basic end, right? You can there are so many different types and variations of firearms that obviously any collection, as a collection grows, that you'll continue to collect. But these are kind of like the basics that we thought that you could potentially start from. So we had the pistol, the shotgun, the .22. Then we had some sort of large caliber hunting rifle, and the last one is probably one of the most debated guns in the entire United States, well, probably the whole world, which is more of a rifled caliber semi-auto, right? So what most people know as like an AR-15 or an AK-47. There's lots of different names for them. Some people
also referred to as a MSR, or modern sporting rifle, or MBR, main battle rifle.
Yeah, battle rifle. I've heard them called that too. So, obviously they're potentially in some situations military-esque, but the civilian versions are significantly different than the capabilities of a fully militarized rifle.
Full militarized rifles, they have 3-round burst and they have full auto, whereas you don't get that with the military. With the civilian
version.
You only have semi-auto. And so which means that you pull the trigger and that's a bullet. You pull the trigger and that's a bullet. Now, it's the same thing as if you're firing a Ruger 10/22. You pull the trigger and it fires a bullet. So it's the same thing. It's just a higher caliber bullet and that you're shooting. Typically, you're shooting a .223 or 5.56 if you're shooting on an AR platform, an AR-15, which does not stand for assault rifle.
Yeah, that's like very common misconception across the entire political realm. Or you have an AK-47, which shoots 7.62 by 39, which is the caliber around there. Yeah. Typically more of a Russian
bullets.
Yeah. Well, I think in the design and everything else is more of a foreign
design. Well, it's called a Kalashnikov.
Yeah, Kalashnikov was the guy that invented it.
So, and the AK-47 is most well known, but there's AK-46s, there's
AK-74s, and
there's 90s. There's all kinds of variances on it. Really, it just has to do with, we could do a whole episode on that.
Yeah, it depends on what you're trying to do with it. If it's a long distance, or it's the setup, or what they call the furniture, which is your grips and your buttstock and what they're made out of and everything else. So, now there's lots of different reasons to own that. Protection is one that we've talked about as well, and that's very potential.
Yeah. So protection from a variety of things. You think about one, civil, the most likely to least likely, right? So the most likely is maybe if a group of guys are trying to get into your house. So where your low caliber, your pistol, or where your shotgun that can only hold a few number of rounds is not going to help you really defend off 2 or 3, 4 guys that are trying to get in your house or something like that.
I think a lot of thing too is the argument is, well, why do you need 30 rounds? It's like, well, if I am in a situation where I need to defend myself or my family, I want to have 1,000 rounds,
yeah.
Right? I mean, it's like, why are you putting a limit on how I can protect my family?
Yeah.
Obviously, if it's gotten the right way, and if it's a legal sale, legal buy, and everything else, then we as Americans have that right. It's like, you don't. In a baseball game, you don't give somebody a toothpick and say, you hit the baseball with this toothpick and because we're trying to even the odds between you and the other team. And it's like, well, why is that necessary? And so we had the,
civil unrest.
Civil unrest maybe is the next one.
Where you get a mob that might come to your house, trying to loot your house or trying to harm your family. I know that several people defended their businesses from absolutely getting destroyed, burnt to the ground. They stood out front with their rifles and said, "Hey, we mean business here. Like, we are protecting our property and our livelihoods here." And I think every American has the right to defend their property and their livelihood.
Yeah. And I think I think if we go from a macro level to a micro level, right? We have a military macro level. We have a military in the United States to protect us from foreign and domestic potentially enemies, right? But the military isn't going to be dispatched to my house if there's an issue, right? And the police maybe, but we talked about that earlier, is it could take 20 to 30 minutes to get anybody there or longer. Mm-hmm. And so from a macro level, the United States has the military and they have the equipment to be able to protect themselves. Down to a micro level is my house is my country. My house is my king. My house is my castle, right? And my family are underneath my stewardship. And it is my responsibility to protect my family, just like it is the responsibility of the government to protect us from foreign, like we talked about, or domestic threats. And so it only makes sense that I would have an equal opportunity to be able to defend myself and my castle.
Yeah, totally. Because I mean, if you think about it, really, with a shotgun, you're not going to like at 50 yards, the shotgun won't do anything at all. A pistol, you have a just small number of rounds, and it's not very accurate long distances. Your hunting rifle, the accurate long distances, but it's usually bolt action. Usually, it's not very small magazines. You're not going to get a large magazine, so you're not going to be throwing very many rounds at all. A 22 semi-auto it's not going to hurt anybody. Actually, it could hurt somebody, but you're not going to defend off a bunch of an angry mob or maybe an invading enemy force with a 22.
No, you definitely could. But I was actually watching this YouTube video, and it's interesting. There's a lot of information out there. It's really cool. But they were talking about the lethality of a 22 caliber rifle.
Yeah.
And they were talking about at what distance is a 22 caliber rifle still lethal. And so they went out 100 yards, and basically they had
can't the bullet travel a mile?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. That sounds about right. Basically they had a dummy or some gel that acted like it was about the same density as a human body, and they were shooting this from a distance, and basically they could tell how far the bullet penetrated if it would be considered lethal or not. And they went out to like 400 yards, and
they must have been aiming at the sky, aiming totally at the sky.
Yeah, it was interesting, but they went out 400 yards, and the issue wasn't lethality. The issue was accuracy.
Yeah, totally.
It was very inconsistent to be accurate on a silhouette at 400 yards with a 22. Now, I'm sure
you're talking. You probably have to be aiming like 10, 20 feet above your target.
Yeah.
To even, because you're talking about that arc, you're really almost just arcing, almost like an arrow. You're arcing it.
Yeah,
really, it's how you're throwing those.
Yeah, but it was just interesting how and at that range you could potentially, maybe it wouldn't stop someone in their tracks, but if you got shot and in a situation where there was no medical attention, then there's obviously lots of other issues that could stem from that, and medical issues, infections, and different things like that.
Yeah.
So.
And let's see, probably the next level up is foreign invaders, right? That would be the next reason to have an AR.
Yeah.
What did the Emperor of Japan say? That we don't want to invade America because behind every blade of grass is a gun.
Yeah, they don't want to. What they say, they awoke a sleeping giant.
Yeah,
that's what they said after Pearl Harbor.
But I don't think that's not like that far fetched. I mean, like. Thank goodness we've never had any foreign wars on American soil. I mean, Pearl Harbor, maybe 9/11. That wasn't a war, but more of a terror attack. But you could say it was almost like a war attack. We're so lucky that we haven't had to experience that. I mean, you talk to almost any other country in this world, and they've been occupied probably by foreign armies in their history, and
France and Poland and European countries that were invaded and taken over by Nazi Germany.
Oh, totally. Yeah, Crimea. They just got invaded. I mean, that was like within like 4 years ago, right?
Yeah,
they got invaded by the Russians. You talk about back in. I mean, Libya, all these places, the Middle East is always, churning.
Unrest,
but, I think that it's important to, you have that in case that ever did happen.
Yeah, well, I think it's closer than we think potentially too, and obviously people will say, oh well, that was World War II was so many years ago that nothing like that could ever happen again with technology and how things are today. But I mean, anything could happen. We have no idea. And the United States, in let's say the Battle of Midway, right? Whenever we were fighting the Japanese in Midway,
yeah.
and basically Midway is an island out. I think it's past Hawaii. That basically, if the Japanese would have occupied that island, then it would have been a stepping ground for them to then jump to the western seaboard of the United States.
Yeah, that was like, if we had lost that battle, like California would have been next to fall. I mean, can you imagine Japanese troops like D-Day, like boarding on the Santa Monica Pier and the beach, and just like just coming on board and just taking occupation of America?
Now, talking this way might sound a little crazy, but you never know. And I think that's one of the beauties of living in this wonderful country, is that we have the right and the blessing to be able to do this. We live in a free state and a free country to be able to express ourselves and to own firearms, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, and you know what? One time I was talking to a buddy, and he was like, "Oh, well, what is an AR-15 going to do?" He said, "That argument's ridiculous. What is an AR-15 going to do against the army or the military?" And I said, "Have you seen what's been going on in Afghanistan and Iraq for the past like 20 years? I mean, like, it's a war of insurgency. They've been fighting America with AK-47s for 20 years, and we're still there." And so it's like, you can absolutely wreak some havoc with these things. Maybe if they send a missile to your house and they absolutely just decimate your house, yeah, I mean, there's in certain cases you're out, but they can definitely, a war of insurgency, an AR or AK or that's this type of rifle would really do you well.
Yeah.
And then the final stage of reason is tyranny within your own country.
Yeah. After foreign invasion or wars outside of the United States, it'd be,
tyranny within your own country. I mean, how many countries have we seen that have taken away Nazi Germany? We saw, what was it, in Bosnia, Herzegovina back in the 90s, or late 90s, I think it was. They were just genociding their own people.
Yeah. And one of the first things they do is they take the guns away from the citizens.
Yeah, we talked about that in communism. They did that. How many people did they? We talked about that in our Halloween episode.
Oh, yeah.
The terrors of communism.
Yeah, for sure. So one final thing that I want to say about all this. I mean, this is a good list. Obviously, this is just a list of 5. And one thing that we said, too, this is 5 guns that every man should own. But,
or woman,
hey, or a woman. Why not?
Maybe every family.
Yeah, maybe every family. That's
really,
a good thing.
I feel like my wife owns the guns that I own, too.
Oh, completely.
I don't see them as mine. I see them as ours. She might not like to shoot some of them, but...
Or my wife would probably say, well, I don't know the combination to the safe, but... I mean, that's neither here nor there. But the last thing...
Oh, that's also the thing, is always keep your gun safe.
Yeah, we will mention that at the beginning.
Yeah.
But the last thing that I was going to say is, you have these 5 things, but ammunition.
Yes.
A gun without ammunition is a stick.
Yep.
It's nothing more than just a bludgeoning tool to throw at somebody. It's basically useless. And so ammunition is important. Now, we could have a whole other episode on, well, how much ammunition should I have for each caliber or for each type of gun that I have? And really the answer is, as right now, as much as you can find, and or as much as you can afford, and as much as you feel that you need to fulfill what your task is. If you're going out on the weekends and shooting every weekend, then obviously you need more. But if you just have some in storage for some kind of survival situation, then it just kind of depends.
Yeah, I think that also I like to shoot out of my stock. Whenever I shoot, I don't like to go to the store and buy to shoot. I like to shoot out of what I have. So
don't have to go to the store out of necessity to say, oh, I want to shoot my gun. Now I got to go to Walmart and get something, because then what if it's not there?
Yeah. So usually when I shoot, I buy, not when I'm going to go shoot. I buy well before that or just after that or when it's on sale. Because it can be expensive, and depending on where you get it, depending on the caliber or whatnot. So definitely, I would say it's good to build up a little bit of a stock so that when something happens to where it gets all totally wiped out, you have something in stock, basically.
Yeah. So, a lot of people might ask, well, how does this fit into a brother's creed? Well, we're talking about motivation and experiences and exploring what the world has to offer. And I think that this is one of those things that is kind of fits into maybe the experiences and exploration.
Yeah.
To be able to know what's out there, know what your rights are, and
be informed a little bit about what you can buy, because some people maybe are afraid to ask those questions. They won't look dumb. So it's like, hey, this is what's out there. These are some guns that you might be that you should maybe consider purchasing if you're new into guns, or if you are looking to maybe build out your gun hobby a little bit more. These are some ones you can consider.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're not experts. We have a lot less experience than some, and a lot more experience than others. So I think that can be said about anybody. But I think rounding out, it's important to practice those safety habits always with guns, and enjoy it. Have fun.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think this has been a great podcast. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate your time. We really appreciate some of the feedback that we've gotten. It's been great to hear some of you reach out to us on Instagram or Facebook and just say, hey, I liked the episode. We love your feedback. And that kind of helps us we don't need help keep going because we're really enjoying this, but it makes us feel good. We appreciate that gratitude.
Yeah, 100%. And you can find us on Instagram at a.brothers.creed. Mm-hmm. You can also find us on Apple iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Podbean, also YouTube. We have a YouTube channel, so go out and check our YouTube channel. We do.
In fact, we're starting to post these videos. We're actually recording this one, and we're going to put this one on YouTube. So if you're a visual person, go ahead and check that out.
Yeah, you'd like to see us as we talk through some of these things. It's there. So subscribe, leave a comment if you can, and we always enjoy hearing your feedback. So
that's right. Let's build that creed together.
All right, let's do it.